All right, number 30 something. I don't know what number this is. It'll tell you down at the bottom of it. As we were just talking about, there's a page of little bitty changes on it that don't amount to anything, moving a bolt hole an eighth of an inch, that kind of thing. There's two major changes that I want to make on the next chassis, and these changes can be made on this chassis because they all involve the shifter and e-brake up here, and that piece is taken out to do that, so you're replacing it anyway. Come around here and let me show you something. See how I laid this out? See the relationship of the steering column or steering wheel and the shifter? Those ought to be about even with each other. Let me go around here and get them this a second. I'm not totally back from vacation yet. This works. Everything is good. But I'd like to see that shifter back about 2 inches. Should be right about in line with that steering column. It's just a little more comfortable. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move that shifter back about 2 inches. Not any big deal. The second thing I'm going to do, this e-brake right here. Works fine, all there. Little bit awkward there. Especially if it moves back a couple of inches. You're kind of starting to run out of room there. My buddy Larry, one of my best cheerleaders on this deal, he's put a deposit on 2 cars. He buys a brand new Corvette every year, and he was showing me his electric parking brake on his Corvette, and he said, "You've got to have an electric parking brake." I'm pleased. He said, "I love everything about the car except the parking brake. I spent the last week and a half figuring out an electric parking brake for this thing." But, and that will totally get rid of that so that you have your armrest back here and absolutely nothing's in the way. So there's actually 2 things there. One, it's a little more ergonomic, and 2, it makes Larry happy. But that's the 2 things we're going to do here. Move the shifter, get rid of this lever right here. I think that will be a good improvement on it. Let me show you. The way we're going to do it, I first did a lot of research on electric parking brakes. There's actually 2 ways to do it. TRW has come out with a parking brake caliper that's electric. And I've researched that a little bit. Not real happy with the price, not real happy with the quantities I've got to buy. Got to have it made for the particular rotor width I'm using, but 2 things above all, not real impressed with TRW's customer service, and secondly, Willwood has promised me the cover of their magazine catalog. I'd like to keep the Willwood. I'm afraid I'd lose that if I didn't keep the Willwood mechanical parking brake caliper back there. So, and I kind of like the way that looks, that red powder coat peeking through the holes in the wheels. So, the other option is to make electric the mechanism as opposed to the brake itself. Well, I looked at that and said, well, okay, let's see what's off the shelf. And I go to Summit and a couple of other hot rod magazines, and sure enough, there's an off-the-shelf electric e-brake system. It's $499. I said, well, that's kind of ridiculous. All it is a linear actuator. Why is a $50 linear actuator $499? Linear actuator. This is one that was some prototype work. We're going to use these on the windows. Already have the deal set up with the company that manufacturs these. This one's a 12-inch stroke, but they come in all different strokes. You can get a little bitty one like what we're going to use here. But it's a motor here, a winder here, up and down. The thing about a linear actuator is, though, once it's there, you turn the current off and it stays there. Unlike, for instance, our door popper solenoids, this is a pretty common item for $5, used on a bunch of cars. I could use it to pull the emergency brake, but the problem is then you turn the car off, turn the current off, and the emergency brake turns off. So, talk to the linear actuator people. This one is just on off. It goes, it stops, whatever. If you release the switch, it stops anywhere in between. But the linear actuator on the e-brake has got to go a certain amount to catch the cables and stop. So, they make these with a potentiometer. Potentiometer, isn't that what you call the guy that's the head of the lodge? No, it's a potentate. Okay. Anyway, they make them with a potentiometer in them, and then a control box. And the control box allows you to program where you want it to start and stop. By being able to program it, you can also reprogram it if you get a little slack, get a little wear on your e-brakes to where it starts and stops and has a proper pressure. This whole system is about $120 my cost. The e-brake levers about $40, all the cables, everything else are the same. We're going to add just under $100 worth of cost to the overall price of the car. But I made my buddy Larry happy, and I got rid of an ugly lever sticking up there. The other thing I've never cared for on this, that lever comes with a handle on it. There's nothing wrong with that handle. It looks nice. It's black plastic. But it doesn't match the shifter, and there's no way to get two to match, and so forth, and that's always bothered me just a little bit on this deal. So that's what we got going there. I'm going to use this is just a typical two-way rocker switch, same rocker switch that we use on the window mechanisms. That's going to activate our make the e-brake work. Same deal, goes up to the light on the dash. Everything, I'm going to make a bracket a little bit differently, but I've actually just kind of extended the shifter bracket back that becomes all of this bracketry. I finally got all that designed up, but this has been about a week and a half project to recalibrate for this electric parking brake, but again, make my buddy Larry happy, and I kind of like it too, but it was frustrating. Let's see here, let me check my notes. How many minutes is that?
8.
8 minutes? Yeah, park brake, TRW we talked about it, price of it we talked about, yeah. I think that's about it. Let me tell you one more thing about our vacation. Before we left on the cruise, we spent 5 days in Puerto Rico. We flew in early because the flights are a whole lot cheaper, and we stayed in a hostel hotel there. Could not convince my camera lady to stay in the dormitory. in the dormitory part of it, that's $10 for a bunk bed in the dormitory, but we stayed in a very nice, very adequate room with a shared bathroom next to it. And the cool part about it was, instead of visiting Puerto Rico and being a tourist in Puerto Rico for 5 days, we got to live in Puerto Rico for 5 days, and there's a big difference there. We got to know the people and eat at the restaurants that the tourists are all about. Had a very, very good time there. But now, like I said before, I'm back, I'm tanned, rested, ready to tackle this deal. This tank will go to the plastic welder as soon as I get this. Got all my drawing and detailing done for the electric e-brake, and here in the next few days we're going to start cutting out another chassis. Anybody interested in this chassis, I may wind up keeping it for the test mule for the the fiberglass body stuff, which is what I ought to do, but I'd rather sell it, I'd rather get the money back out of it, and I'd rather not have to find a place to put it. So, I think that's about it. How much time was that?
And
Okay, let's call that one a